changes to Apple's repair policies? This is MacVoices. MacVoices is sponsored by Upstart, fair and fast personal loans. Go to upstart.com/MacVoices and find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. And folks, this is MacVoices Live. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. We'd love to have you join us in the chat room to throw comments and questions at our panel, decide what we'd like to talk about, because we have some ideas, but we always want to address what you want to hear us opine on. That is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. We'd love to have you join us. If you're not here tonight, maybe next week. Tell your smart assistant to remind you Tuesday night at your appropriate time and come on in. So this is a pre-Thanksgiving in the U.S. show. So we are all kind of gearing up for a few days off. At least that's what they tell me I'll be doing. I'm not quite sure. Don't have really. But let's go around the table, find out who's here, and then we'll dig into tonight's topics. And I'm going to reverse things a little bit this time around. I'm going to start at the bottom of my screen because we have a new member of the MacVoices Live panel. He's been here before, but now we've made him an official member, Mr. Mike T. Rose. Mike, welcome, and thanks for coming.
It is my pleasure. I'm glad to be officially a part of the MacVoices Live community and one of the voices. Happy Thanksgiving to the entire esteemed panel. I'm very glad to be here. And I have a photograph I'd like to show at some point during the evening. I don't have to show it right now, but it is relevant to the interests of Mac podcasters everywhere. So just let me know when you want me to share this photograph, and I will do it. At any moment.
We will. We'll go around the introductions, then we'll do your photograph as the first
Mike,
topic.
In my defense, I was young and needed the money.
I'm sorry, Jeff. That explains what you were doing. It doesn't explain what Peter Cohen and Kelly were doing in the photograph. So,
we were all young. We needed the money.
That's not the picture, although that is a classic picture. We'll get to it eventually, but that's not what it is.
Let's not. Let's not. Okay, so they're messing up my order, but anyway, we'll just go with it. Jeff Gamet, welcome. It's good to have you back. We've missed you for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Sorry, I had to miss a couple of weeks. Sometimes scheduling is weird.
Hey, we just appreciate it whenever you can grace us with your presence.
Well, I'm glad that I can be here so I can be graced with all of your presence.
God, the mutual admiration here is just frightening.
We should hug.
Yeah. Jim Ray, welcome. It's good to have you back. How are things?
Thank you. They're good.
Okay, good. Good. I love Jim's answer. Just straight to the point, no elaboration. Just good. That's good. Okay. And of course, David Ginsburg is back. David, welcome. Good to have you as always.
Great to be here. And yes, it's Thanksgiving. It's nice to have some time with the family and the friends. And I'm here with the friends to celebrate Thanksgiving. So good to be here.
It's funny. At least this happens to me on these kind of holidays. I don't know about you guys, but I think, okay, I've got some time off and I've got all these projects I've been wanting to, do that really require a bit of focus time. Not necessarily a day or anything, but just, 15, 20, 30 minutes uninterrupted. And I never get any of them done. It seems like the demands are there. The phone rings, something happens, and you're off, and all of a sudden it's Sunday night, and you're looking at the start of the work week again. It's like, what happened? So, I don't know.
That's the man bringing you down, Chuck.
No, it's not the man. It's everybody else that just says, "Hey, could you do this? Could you wash this window? Could you pump up this tire? Whatever." I don't know.
Wait, you do those things? I've got a list for you, Chuck.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hey, you buy the plane ticket and pay me the right price, and I'll come out and do them.
Sweet, Jim. I need to borrow your credit card.
That's right.
The ProView corporate card says mysterious travel.
You think you do?
Yeah. So, Mike, let's see the photo.
All right. So I was on a trip last week. I was in Hawaii, and while I was in Hawaii, I had the opportunity to be disabled for participant screen sharing. So nobody's going to see the photo, unfortunately, because I can't share in the Zoom because I'm a participant. But Chuck is going to fix that hopefully in a second.
Let's hope I can.
I was in Hawaii, and of course, if you're in Honolulu in Hawaii, it's important to reach out to old friends. So that's what I did, and I'm still disabled for participant screen sharing. So maybe I'll just text this photo to Chuck.
No. Hang on, working on it, Mike. Working on it.
If you know if you're an old reader of TUAW, and at this point all the readers of TUAW are old. I am the host now. I am the captain now. All the readers are old. You remember co-host of 2 TV Live and Talkcast impresario Sean Doc Rock Boyd, and sure enough, that is who we had the opportunity to visit with. So that's me and my wife hanging out with Doc Rock, the one and only Doc Rock in Honolulu. Doc, of course, is now the community ambassador for Ecamm and Ecamm Live. And so we were thrilled to get a chance to hang out with him. And the best part of this story is I posted this picture to Instagram and immediately had someone from a completely other part of my life, not a Mac person, say, "Is that Doc Rock?" Because he in turn was a big fan of Doc's streams and learned a lot from him. So that's the picture I wanted to share. Just a meeting of a meeting across the ocean with an old friend. So
Such an awesome photo.
Yeah, that's great. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh, cool, Doc."
Yeah. And you notice how Doc shot this with his iPhone 13 selfie camera. So notice how he's perfectly in focus, and Heidi and I are nicely part of the bokeh background. That's
cinema
really
mode.
the best part. It's cinema mode. It's definitely cinematic shot.
Cinematic shot, but yeah.
But it's just as well. Like he's definitely the focal point. So anyway, I wanted to share that with everybody on the YouTube. If you don't follow Doc Rock on YouTube, you should absolutely look him up. He's a great ambassador for the Ecamm brand, and more importantly, a great guy and a great educator and evangelist for everybody's success in their streaming efforts. So that's my show and tell for today.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. That's good. That's good. I will issue a warning though. If you follow Doc Rock on YouTube, or be prepared, because he's going to suck up a lot of time. He gives you a lot back. There's a lot of great stuff there, but the trouble is it all looks so compelling. It's like, yeah, I want to watch that one. And pretty soon it's 3 hours later and you realize you've just done 3 hours of Doc Rock. So be warned.
Absolutely be warned.
Be warned. So before the show, I asked the group if they thought we should talk about the Apple repair service situation, because the news broke the day after we recorded our last MacVoices Live, and the consensus was, sure, we should, just because we haven't touched on it. And I think everybody has some thoughts. They may have expressed them already in other shows or on their own shows, but hey, they haven't expressed them here. So I'll throw it out to the group. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a big deal? Is this, has Apple caved in some way? Or is this really something that's going to benefit anybody on this panel and anybody in the chat room? Jeff, how about if we start with you?
Well, my take, which I've shared on a couple shows already, is that this is a legal strategic move. This is not an altruistic move to help out users. This is a move to help out Apple. And this is part of Apple's strategy to control the narrative, or at least as much as they can, in regards to right to repair. So Apple wants to present themselves as a company that doesn't need to have government regulation in this area. So set themselves up, say, look, we're providing the tools, the manuals, the parts, so that people can fix their own stuff. We don't need any government intervention. And the side effect is that for the minority of people that will actually want to replace their own screen or battery on their iPhone, whatever the replacement parts that they're going to provide are, those people will be able to do that. And for the rest of us, it's not going to be a big deal. And then Apple has set the groundwork for whatever the next part of their strategy is.
Okay.
I tend to agree with Jeff. I was just going to say that this is a defensive maneuver on Apple's part to try to not get further sideways with regulators, or particularly in the EU, who are going to say, look, you have to do this, versus doing it in advance or doing it as a precautionary move lifts a little bit of that. Are there people who are going to be able to take advantage of it? Absolutely. Whether it's wise to do that, given the complexity of actually repairing something like an iPhone, that's an open question. But it may make it, in some ways, easier for mom and pop or drop-in iPhone repair folks to get legitimate parts, to get OEM parts where needed. But is it going to change the broader landscape of repairing these devices? I don't think so. It's a very small fraction of the audience or small fraction of the user base that would even think of taking advantage of this, rather than paying somebody to do it right.
Yeah, I agree. I think nobody in most cases is going to want to repair their own iPhone, and I've already seen comments in the chat about that in that case. So I think the percentage is going to be extremely low that anybody is going to want to just go ahead and, let me order some parts and start replacing my screen and replacing the battery, because they as we've seen in iFixit teardowns, this is not an easy feat at all. But I agree with Jeff, and I think this was definitely a strategic move on Apple's part. They're ready to be in place. And no more complaining about that we're not for the right to repair anymore, and just did an about face, because they were pushing back for a long time, and a lot of pushback of, okay, we should have that right. We should be able to repair things. And so now, and like I said, I think other these mom and pop shops and other folks that don't have the access to the Apple repair network, then now they can grab these parts and do it, and you'll have more choices too.
So does anybody feel like there are going to be a flood of do-it-yourself repair videos on YouTube showing you how to do something, or how they broke something when they were trying to do it, and complaining about the fact that Apple didn't make it easier or better, or didn't give them adequate warning? And that's I'm always kind of the naysayer on some of these things, but I just feel like I agree with all of you. I think it's a strategic move, and it's a great strategic move, because now Apple has been able to do it pretty much on their terms, as opposed to having one of these entities, say, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it this way, and you're going to like it. So I really respect the fact that they've done it. But the other thing too, and I've said this countless times about other things, is I'm one of those guys that I'm not a do-it-yourselfer. So if I don't know how to do something, unless it's relatively simple, I'm going to hire a professional to do it, because I'm going to end up hiring the professional anyway to fix the original problem and what I broke along the way. So, and I feel like that there may be a lot of that happening as we go through this, depending on how Apple handles it and what manuals they put out there.
There's probably already videos out there of people taking apart the iPhone, besides what iFixit's done, that do this as well. As I agree with you. I think once people have all these parts in the wild, hey, let's do it. It's almost like an unboxing video. Let me do my first time repair of an iPhone, and then watch them crash and burn, right? So there's going to be lots. So I can anticipate. That's why we love you too.
I'm curious, is there something that any of you think that, major that Apple does that's not in their interest?
You make a good point, Jim.
Yeah.
You make an excellent point. The altruism of the $1 trillion company would make a great book title, but it's not a real thing. That's a fantasy novel. There's no altruism there's corporate responsibility and there are ideals and there's mission statements and there's all sorts of stuff, but there is not we're going to start this whole new thing because it's out of the goodness of our hearts. It's because we feel that it's in the self-interest of the company. So that is a strong argument, Jim. Good job.
But is that unreasonable? I mean, don't we all do that?
I didn't say it was unreasonable. I just, it seems like everybody pointed that out like it was like, it needed pointing out. And I just am kind of like, yeah, that they do everything for that reason. At this point, I mean, maybe 30 years ago, there was things that you could, but at this point, I think, you've got to assume that pretty much everything they do is calculated and, weighed and focus grouped and, gone through the legal department and maybe, I kind of wouldn't have said this at the beginning of this conversation, but as I was listening to everybody, I was thinking, well, maybe kind of the story here is that the pressure worked. And, for whatever reason, they decided that the calculus was, we better do something before we, governments make us do it. And, probably if there wasn't a lot of noise around that, this wouldn't have happened. And I don't think it's a major big deal. I don't think very many people are going to do it. And also note that like right now, I think that it's just iPhone 12 and 13, right? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how many? Most iPhone 12 and 13s at this point are still covered by Apple Care. So I don't think anybody's going to fix a device that they could get fixed with Apple Care, or very few people would.
I was going to say I'd go to very few.
Yeah. Right. So, but it does sort of diffuse the legal attention. They've got enough attention on them with legislatures and other areas. They that's probably part of the calculation Apple made was who's going to do this. We can make this concession. It's not going to cost us anything. So why not? This is not a hill to die on. That 30% cut on apps, that's the hill to die on, not, the 12 people that want to fix their iPhones. I guess it does mean that they are going to be publishing service documentation, which is interesting.
Yeah.
MacVoices is sponsored by Upstart. Fair and fast personal loans. Go to upstart.com/MacVoices and find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments. At this time of year, it's easy to have spending get a little out of control, with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and holiday cheer throughout the month. But come January, all that holiday cheer shows up on your credit card statements. And that's why you should be looking into Upstart now. Upstart is the fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personal loan, all done online. But not just a personal loan, a smarter personal loan, because Upstart gives you a smarter rate. They don't just look at your credit score alone, but take other factors like your income, current employment, and credit history into account to give you that smarter rate. And checking with Upstart doesn't affect your credit score, so you can do your research worry-free. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/MacVoices. That's Upstart, UPSTART.com/MacVoices. Don't forget to use my URL to let them know I sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Go to upstart.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Upstart for their support of MacVoices. Does anybody feel like, okay, let me back up. I don't feel like most of these devices are designed any longer for a non-Apple technician to be poking around inside. Doesn't mean you can't, and doesn't mean you can't do so successfully, but they really weren't designed for this. And so it just, I don't know. I mean, okay, well, how about this panel? We're all reasonably tech savvy people to one degree or another. How many people are going to feel like they want to crack open their iPhone or their MacBook Pro or their Apple Watch and do a repair? Anybody raising their hand?
Nope.
No, but I think, look down the road, when these devices are not new anymore and, so maybe this will divert some of them from the landfill. And, there are a lot of people that are doing, amazing, technical things and taking things apart and putting them together. And, we might see, as opposed to repairs, like maybe some people with service documentation able to repurpose, older devices, for interesting applications. I mean, there's a whole homebrew hardware, world out there where people are doing things that, I'm just like, wow, who would think that, and for me, I think it's probably less a question of, would I try it? Then I don't have time to try that. Especially with an older device, I might be like, well, if I got some older device that's broken, what have I got to lose? So maybe I might want to try to fix it. And, these service documents will still be around when an iPhone 12 is, 5 years from now. So maybe the impact isn't 2022, but maybe starts kicking in more 2025, 2026. And again, not that it's going to be some huge thing that's going to upend the iPhone market or, make all the difference, but it'll make some difference. There'll be some things that will happen that wouldn't have happened. And again, I think there's little downside for Apple. It's not going to impact the market. They're disassociating themselves from like John Deere, that's preventing farmers from fixing their tractors, which I think would be a big deal. And so there's still a big fight around this for some other things. And Apple has just said, you know what, we're out. We don't need to be a part of that fight. That's not our hill.
I think you make some great points, Jim. I don't think it's going to be material. It's too bad that we will never see any kind of quantification of just what this means, because, of course, not only are the average people that might be wanting to experiment with this going to buy these parts and try these things, but it's also going to be the repair shops that really do know what they're doing, including authorized Apple repair shops. They're going to have easier access to parts and some information. So I'm anxious to hear more from them.
There was some posts that I saw, and this I'm a little unclear on, but it said that, Apple had already done that a couple of years ago, that it made parts more accessible to, expanded the ability of firms to become authorized Apple repair, and that this wasn't going to affect them because it had already been opened up. And, I just saw that in one post and didn't see much else about it. But I know, there's a local third-party repair place that I go to in California here. I've never had to take a phone to them, but whenever I have a Mac problem, I go to them. I don't go to the Apple store.
Jim, my interpretation of Apple's announcement is that this is a program for individuals.
Right. But I'm saying I think there already was a program.
Small businesses and indie repair shops. This is for people.
I understand. But what I read was that there already was a couple of years ago, they started a program for small businesses. So, yeah, of course, they didn't have to announce a program for small businesses. They already had that. So this extends that to individuals. Or it's a different program, but... So, and I don't remember where I read it, and it was just one place. So, I was kind of like looking for other places to pick that up and didn't see it. But the one, I think it was in 9 to 5 Mac, and they were like, well, yeah, there's already a program for small independent stores to get parts. And it was, happened about 2 years ago.
Well, Jim, the memory span in the news community is incredibly short. And if you go and look at most of the sites that are covering Apple, and it's probably the same for all the tech companies, but we'll focus on Apple for now. And you read something that they write today, and then you go and read what they wrote 6 months ago about the same thing.
Sure.
And And they don't even reference what they wrote before. And they act as if that original piece had never been written. So yeah, while people were writing a couple years ago about Apple expanding out the repair service to additional companies and then not covering it now, saying, hey, look, we already have this part, so here's the new thing for individuals, I am not surprised at all.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I didn't want MacVoices to be one of those outlets that was spreading this kind of misinformation. Except I'm not 100% sure that I'm not spreading misinformation.
I don't think you're spreading any misinformation at all.
Yeah. Well,
all you're spreading is holiday cheer. That's all.
I don't think I am
Nothing
either,
more.
but I'm not 100% confident that I am. I'm about 90% confident, but I don't want to misrepresent that I am an oracle of truth on this.
So here's an interesting question that Bob just put in the chat room. How much would you save compared to taking your device to the Apple Store?
Well, I could say it firsthand. I wanted to get a screen replaced on a 10s Max that was cracked. Go look at the Apple Store, then they wanted to charge $340 for it, and then I went to a third party. Granted, it's probably not a genuine Apple part, but it was $176 instead. So there's quite a difference in price there. So why wouldn't I want to do it there and save a little bit of money and get a little more life out of it and not have to spend almost double the cost of an Apple part?
I was wondering if Bob's question was, how much would you save buying the parts and doing the work yourself?
Oh yeah, you won't save anything, I wouldn't think.
Well, you might, labor. but you're going to save you're saving a lot of labor, but you're running the risk of course, bricking your device or doing damage to yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. And David, do I remember correctly though you haven't bricked the device or anything, but that you have a nagware kind of message constantly coming up?
Yeah, disabled Face ID.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's another story that I haven't seen connected. That was recently that, I think it was the 13 that they were saying, well, now you couldn't replace the screen. If you did replace the screen, then Face ID would be permanently broken, unless Apple did it. And
that was originally the chip.
Right. And then about a week later, it was like Apple has decided that they're going to let third-party people in on the secret of how to do it so that Face ID could continue to work.
It wasn't a secret. It's a software update. They're adding
right, but they were going to give third parties access to that software, which they originally said we're not going to give them access to. So that's another interesting sort of separate story along that, but it's kind of connected that Apple, and it's weird because it was a definite turnaround because they announced, nope, no more third party, can't do screen replacements anymore, full stop. And then less than a week later, it was like, oh, our bad. No, still going to let that happen.
What it was there's a specific chip that's in there that had to be reprogrammed, and you had to have the really expensive special equipment that Apple, of course, has in order to reprogram it. My understanding is when 15.2 was coming out for iOS, that update is going to cover that across the board. So it's not any repair shop that needs to work with Apple. It's actually going to be a software update. It's on the phone that will eliminate the need to reprogram that chip.
But to go back to Bob's question, I put it in the chat room. David said half, somebody else, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but that's if you successfully complete the repair and don't end up breaking something else or losing functionality. Because I respect what you did, David, but until you can get rid of that nagware, I don't see the repairs being completed successfully.
Right. Other than that, the phone works fine. It's just Face ID doesn't work. That's the only bad thing.
Well, and in the past, that wasn't a problem. Third-party places could do it. I interpreted Bob's question as possibly, it is kind of ambiguous question, possibly meaning how much would you save going to a third party instead of Apple? I can't answer that part, the amount question, but I'll throw in that, why do I go? And I'll make a shout out to these guys, the Mac guys in Costa Mesa. why do I go there instead of the Apple Store? Well, for one thing, they've had the same staff, for like 7, 8, 9 years. So, I get the same people, when I go back. When I go to the Apple Store, they never heard of me. I get a different person, even if I go tomorrow. So I like having the same people. I also like that, they're in a store that's not in a mall. So, it's only like 12 feet from my car to their front door. So depending on, with a phone, it doesn't matter so much, but especially if it was a desktop Mac, I mostly have laptops, but it's nice to not have to walk a quarter mile with your equipment to get it in and out of the store. But mostly, the fact of just being, having consistent people to deal with, and they don't, I don't come in enough that they really know who I am, but I recognize them, and it's, I've gotten a consistent level. If I can get a hold of them, I can call them on the phone and they'll answer the phone, which, you can't get that with an Apple Store that I know of. So that's some advantages. Of course, a lot of places don't have any third-party places that will do Mac stuff, but fortunately, there's one.
Our panel will be back in the next edition to continue the discussion of Apple repairs. We talk about our personal experiences with Apple repairs, both in-store and out-of-store, the convenience of the Apple stores, and a whole lot more. I hope you'll join us. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.